And come to the massive guys, we are finally back again for another reaction on the one and only Mystelics reaction. No, Mystelics vlogs, guys. For those of you who don't know, guys, of course, I got a strike on the Mystelics React channel. And as a result of getting the strike for something I did back in May of 2021, for which I was reacting to people talking about injections and stuff. For those of you who didn't see the previous reaction video on this channel, of course, it was rather unfortunate that I got a strike as a result of that. And as a result of this, I can't post for like a week, so I'm only doing it on this year Mystelics vlog. So with that said, guys, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on that post notification on this year Mystelics vlog channel. This is of course where I give pretty much entertainment vibes, showing, going out all over the place and having fun with my friends and just, you know, vibes in, showing you guys the kind of like the behind the scenes kind of vibrations that I tend to show on this year channel. However, I'm gonna be doing for a whole week, 7 days, brothers and sisters. I will be doing reactions on this here channel. Hopefully, yes, I will have enough time, man, before I drop another vlog, man. You guys know we're gonna go crazy with the vlogs. But anyways, with all that said right there, guys, we're gonna get into something a bit more serious when it comes down to the situation involving the Dennis BYRON, or Sir Dennis BYRON report. And of course, this is the registration of electors regulation. This is part 2. I actually uploaded part 1 on BrBpTV.
Terms of reference as outlined by the government.
Yeah, actually uploaded this very thing on BrBpTV. I'll post that link in the description below so you guys can check out the full thing. It is 30-something minutes long. However, I'm gonna summarize that vibrations for you guys in this here clipping, this reaction. Sir BYRON's proposed draft legislation relating to the registration of voters. Draft, of course, registration for Electoral Bill 2023. Introduction right there. I'm gonna just be, there's a lot of parts to this thing. So we're gonna be going in 48. My god. All right, I won't have to say much, but let's get into the vibrations right there. I'm gonna make this thing speak for you guys and then just give my views on it, what have you.
1. This report introduces the draft registration of electors bill 2023, which repeals the Registration of Electors Act, Chapter 203, and the consequential draft registration of electors regulations 2023.
Okay guys, so let's continue. I don't know if you guys hear the noise. This noise is happening upstairs, man.
2. They provide a modern and updated legislative framework for the registration of electors that conforms to international best practice. Their substance is a combination of the existing legislation, the proposed, but unimplemented, amendments of 2017 and 2019, and the additional reforms proposed during my consultancy. Okay. Then he goes on in explaining. Let me just make this thing, read this whole thing. No, man, I don't want you guys to get bored. Especially the computer just speaking like this. The language is gender neutral and avoids references that are exclusively masculine. It is easy to read and understand and ensures that critical and sensitive elements are clearly and adequately reflected. Particular attention was given to the new provisions on the voter identification card and the confirmation of registration. So what they're saying there is pretty much utilizing, so if they're saying he or this kind of things, kind of like the Bible, it's speaking about everybody. So generally, gender neutral thing. Let's continue. The voter registration process forms the crux of the democratic process, and it is due in large part to this fact that the mechanism by which voters are registered must be measured in terms of its contribution to the electoral system as a whole. Yep. Well, you understand. These things are very easy to understand. So, let me just make this thing, read this stuff. Therefore, the system of registration must be beyond reproach. True. The proposed legislative framework is intended to provide electoral registers that are accurate and comprehensive throughout the country. In other words, the legislation being done there must be free and fair. It must be beneficial to everyone across the board, not just some people. 3. The structure of the legislation is reorganized into parts along thematic lines, with sub-headings under which provisions dealing with specific aspects of the theme of the part are set out to achieve greater coherence by treating provisions that relate to each other together. Yes. All of this is intended to make the legislation user-friendly. Okay guys, we are definitely back. The draft registration for Electoral Bill 2023. So I'm guessing, yeah, well, I think that is pretty much the same thing of what they were trying to do before, but let's get it. 1. The bill is divided into six parts containing, respectively, standard preliminary provisions. Part 1, provisions relating to polling districts and the appointment of officers. Part 1, Provisions governing the registration of electors and the register of electors. Part Lead. General provisions. Part 5. Provisions that deal with the confirmation of registration. Part 5. And repeal. Savings and transitional provisions. Part 6. There are 60 clauses.
60 clauses, that's crazy. Anyways, this is part 1 right there, guys. Part 1. Let's get it.
Part 1. 2. In party, the 3 clauses set out its short title, the effective date of the legislation, the definitions of certain expressions used in the bill and the application of the bill. This part clarifies that the bill is intended to apply to registration of electors for the election of members not only to serve in the House of Assembly, but in a city, town, urban or village council
So
and the
the whole
Kalinago Territory Council.
So they're dealing with the whole thing, guys. Not just peace, they're dealing with everything. They're looking into everything.
Part 2, 3. In Part LL, the 2 clauses deal with the plain districts and the appointment of officers necessary to effect the registration of electors. Clause 4 directs the division of every constituency into polling districts and empowers the Commission and the Chief Registering Officer to make alterations in polling districts, to abolish them or to create new ones. Clause 5 designates the Chief Elections Officer as the Chief Registering Officer and provides for the appointment of registration officers, assistant registering officers and enumerators to perform functions under the Act.
Yeah. So their rules.
Part LLI 4. In Part II, the 27 clauses deal with the qualification and disqualification for registration, the registration process, the constitution of a new register of electors, the registers and lists, some general provisions relating to registration and the register of electors and the use of technology. Controversial issues relating to the qualification and disqualification for registration have been resolved under this part.
So so far from all what I've heard there, there's only this part that Scared is pretty much talking about the use of technology. I think as modernized, we definitely need to go into the modernization time. Modernized time, brothers and sisters. And here's residents and citizens. What are you guys having to see for this one right there?
5. One of these controversies was the extent to which residence in or citizenship of the Commonwealth of Dominica should be the predominant criterion.
I agree. It should be people living in Dominica. I agree. Do you agree, disagree, or agree? What are your thoughts?
6. The constitutional position is set out in Section 33 of the Constitution. Section 33. 2. Effectively prescribes that every Commonwealth citizen of the age of 18 years or upwards who possesses such qualifications relating to residence or domicile as Parliament may prescribe shall, unless disqualified by Parliament from registration as a voter for the purpose of electing representatives, be entitled to be registered as such a voter in accordance with the provision of any law in that behalf, and no other person may be so registered.
So people who have Commonwealth passports and a residence, I think that has already been there though. Our residents in the country for, I'm guessing, a certain amount of time because they are paying taxes and so forth and so forth. So it would make sense for the people living in the country. Yeah. Anyways.
7. This reform project is governed by that constitutional provision. There is no mandate to amend the Constitution. The prevailing constitutional position is that citizenship of the Commonwealth of Dominica is not the dominant constitutional criterion to be qualified to vote. Any citizen of the Commonwealth, and that means
every Commonwealth citizen. That's what I just said right there. I think that is still the case.
Every Commonwealth citizen of the age of 18 years or upwards who possesses such qualifications relating to residence or in domicile as Parliament may shall, unless he is disqualified by Parliament from registration as a voter for the purpose of electing representatives, be entitled to registered as such a voter in accordance with the provisions of any law in that behalf, and no other person may be so registered.
To Commonwealth citizens, and if you're residing in the country for a number of time as a resident, then yeah, that's what he's saying right there.
6. Every person who is registered as aforesaid in any constituency shall, unless be is disqualified by Parliament from voting in that constituency in any election of representatives, entitled so to vote, in with the provisions of any law that behalf, and no other person may so vote.
That speaks for itself.
The British Commonwealth has the same qualification subject to different qualifications relating to residence or domicile in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Okay, let's just do this full thing right there. Speech.
8. Parliament has prescribed that the general rule is that citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica 18 years and over are qualified to vote if they have resided in a polling district for a continuous period of 3 months immediately before the qualifying date. And B. Other Commonwealth citizens 18 years and over who have resided in the Commonwealth of Dominica for not less than 12 months immediately before the qualifying date are qualified to vote if they have resided in a polling district for a continuous period of at least 3 months immediately preceding the qualifying date.
So 12 months for Commonwealth citizens, 3 months for citizens of Dominica. Makes sense. These provisions were preserved in Clause 7 of this new bill. And these are... Let's go to 9.
A major discussion point was the status of citizens by investment. In the absence of any special legislation, they are not entitled to vote unless over the age of 18 years and have resided in a polling district for a continuous period of 3 months immediately before the qualifying date. This reform does not propose any legislation to address persons of this status. I should add that there are no constitutional or legal enactments or judicial decisions to clarify whether legislation conferring citizens of different categories different rights under Section 33 of the Constitution could be introduced without constitutional change.
So my question here is, if they're doing it that way, now for the citizenship by the investment program, people who have obtained citizenship through that means they have to be in the country for 3 months. They can't just say, I in Dubai and say, let me come down and vote and then fly back. No, you have to be a resident in the country for 3 months. Right there. Okay? So, I guess it's the same thing like that of the Dominican, the citizens of Dominica who are living in Dominica for residents and citizens. No, residents are 12 months. Citizens is 3 months. So, I'm guessing they obtain citizenship, it will be the same thing. Right there. Absence from the Commonwealth of Dominica for 5 years. This I gotta hear right there, guys. Rock it to us, please.
10. Parliament had defined residence in relation to citizens of the Commonwealth of Dominica by prescribing that absence from Dominica for a period exceeding 5 years was a basis for deleting an elector's name from the register.
However, let's see what they're saying there. However, speech.
However, it seemed to be generally accepted that there was no record that any elector's name had ever been deleted from the register on that basis. B. Similarly, there was no record that any objection had ever been made against the failure to delete an elector's name on that basis.
Similarly, there was no record that any objection had been ever made against the failure to delete. Of course, there were. Well, then again, if you're talking about going to them, because I know a number of persons actually came out and say, hey, look, this person is no longer alive and they're still on the voters list. So, yeah, but they're not dealing with this one. They're talking about people who have been away for 5 years. Anyways, let's continue right there. Okay, let me do this in part. This is pretty long, hey guys. So.
Despite the foregoing, the issue of allowing voting rights to persons who have been residing overseas has been and remains an issue of passionate contention.
True. They just come, they go and vote, but based on what they're saying right there, you have to be in the country for 3 months. 3 months if you're a Commonwealth, 12 months, and then you have to be before what do you call that, the date of election. You have to be there for 3 months prior. So my question here is, how are they going to calculate this? How are they going to calculate this? And how are they going to... Anyways, that's not my thing right there. Let's continue.
11. The interpretation and implementation of that enactment was a highly contentious and time-consuming issue throughout my consultations. The explanations for the failure to implement the absence provisions which seemed most pertinent were that there were difficulties in interpreting that provision and b. in accessing evidence to allow an evidence-based decision on absence for 5 years.
Yeah, you need to prove this thing, but I mean, obviously they should...
12. The arguments raised concerns about disenfranchisement of persons who had been legitimately placed on the register of electors and had taken up residence overseas and maintained links of various types, including sending remittances and making occasional home visits.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah, I make home visits. You come and visit for 2 weeks and then you think you're going to come and vote?
On the other hand, there were concerns regarding manipulation of the system by a person making a short home visit during an election cycle to stop the clock from running.
That's good.
13. Eventually, after various compromises, the following provision was reached. Electors residing outside of the Commonwealth of Dominica would not be considered absent from the Commonwealth of Dominica if in any 5-year cycle they spent an aggregate of 90 days in the Commonwealth of Dominica. 90 days over 5 years works out at approximately 18 days per year. Information on vacation entitlements in the USA suggested that 18 days exceeded average vacation entitlements, which were more in the vicinity of between 10 to 15 days per year.
That's the vacation that they normally tend to give people working in the United States. And if you spend 18 days per year, that's going to exceed your vacation day. So that's an interesting one right there. Yeah, you need to spend at least 90 days in Dominica. 90 days in Dominica for 5 years. Not just coming for 2 weeks and then you go back and then the election come, you come back and go. No!
This led to the alternative position of 50 days per year. The Commission accepted the principle but did not agree on the time that should be spent in the Commonwealth of Dominica to avoid removal from the Register of Electors. This provision is square bracketed, and the selection with unction of Parliament, as my role is advisory. A mitigating fact is that a citizen can requalify as an elector by residing in a polling district for a continuous period of 3 months.
They should be there for 3 months, man. Gathering evidence. Let's see. So we are
14. The issue of gathering evidence to support evidence-based decisions on issues related to qualification and disqualifications to be on the Register of Electors was addressed in Clause 26 by requiring the relevant public officers to provide information to the Electoral Commission and to do so in an electronic form.
Okay, Papa. Voter ID. So I'm hopefully you guys understand what they're saying right there. Trying to figure out, how if people coming in. But I think it makes sense, yeah. Spend, at least 18 days per year so you can feel the country a little bit. You outside, yeah, sure. But come every year, spend 18 days, man. Come and feel a little Guaye, man.
15. The introduction of voter identification cards to persons registered as electors, supported with biometric data, was considered one of the most important reforms by almost everyone. This was regarded as essential to eliminate or minimize a wide variety of fraudulent conduct at elections, including impersonation and multiple voting. The issue of these voter ID cards has been mandated by clause.
True. I think that is very necessary indeed. Anyway, let's continue right there. No, I don't need to think this one. Closure of registration on the day of writ. Yes, that's what I want to know as well, because last time when they did the closure of when the president did the writ, people had 24 hours to register to vote. Those
Closure of registration on the day a writ of election is issued. 16. Closing registration of electors on the day the writ of election is issued is another important innovation. In addition to matters raised by stakeholders in the consultation process, the Chief Elections Officer drew attention to the culture of last-minute applications for registration of electors when the writ is issued.
Yep, it was too soon, man. That doesn't... Not enough time.
This puts pressure on the resources of the electoral office at a time when the office should be focused on making adequate preparations for elections.
True.
If this is not properly managed, it creates the risk of undermining the integrity of the electoral register.
That's what happened.
The last-minute rush means that there is insufficient time for the CRO and registering officers to do their due diligence. Despite this, the unit has risen to the occasion and processed the applications, although the CEO has indicated that is facilitated by the fact that several of the last-minute applicants were not eligible.
You see, there's not enough time.
But he explained that inevitably this practice allows possible inadvertent registration of disqualified persons or of persons more than once in different constituencies and handicap the timely hearing and disposition of I-related claims and objections before the final and definitive register of electors is published. The Commission supported the view that in order to resolve this problem, the register of electors must be closed to amendments on the day the writ for holding an election is issued. However, in the interests of fair play, matters already pending on that day may be addressed after polling day. New legislative provisions have been introduced to give effect to the fact that decision.
So hopefully they have a timely manner, at least a week or something.
7. This creates a massive change in behavior and requires a change of culture surrounding elections, which the Commission must proactively foster. New measures are introduced into the Act to authorize and encourage new practices. These are aimed at stopping last-minute applications to register when an election writ is issued. Instead, eligible persons are expected to register as soon as they are eligible. The Commission will declare special registration periods during each year. These periods will be supported by public awareness education campaigns encouraging early and continuous registration and emphasizing that the register will be closed once the writ for election is issued.
So that makes sense. So if you're 18 years old, and let's say election is in 2024, and you're 18 years old, they should open certain parts of the year to say, hey guys, okay, and put it all over the media, all over radio, television, put it everywhere so that people can know, okay, we can come to register during this time. Because from my understanding, I was thinking, when do people register to vote? Do they register to vote when the writ is before just before the president signs the writ or something like this, or they get to do this during the year? And of course, they're making a thing, they're stating that there should be specific times that this is done. So I agree. Yeah, anyways, let's continue right here. I should learn the shortcut key for that, you know.
The proposed special registration periods would be in addition to the continuous registration process required under the current law. These new measures are prescribed in Clause 22 and 23.
Okay, we'll get there in a while. Request to deregister oneself. Okay. Request this. What is going on here?
18. Another new measure considered a best practice is to allow persons on the register of electors to have themselves deregistered. Under Clause 24, the Chief Registering Officer is empowered to deregister an elector at his or her request in accordance with the prescribed procedures.
Okay, so if you don't want to be a part of the voters list, there you go. Now they're talking about technology. This is what Scared was talking about there.
19. Modernizing the system for registration of electors should take advantage of the available technology, which has already been discussed. The Act, in clauses 32 and 33, specifically makes provision for the Commission to allow for the implementation of a system of electronic registration and the establishment of a register of electors in electronic form. Consideration is currently being given to the acquisition of the VOTRUST solution. If it is approved early enough, we may be able to make regulatory changes in this Act, giving effect to the Interpretation and General Clauses Act on Penalties and Regulations. 20 Section 29, 1b, of the Interpretation and General Clauses Act, 1 GCA, prescribes the maximum penalties that may be imposed for the contravention of regulations unless the act under which the regulations are made provide otherwise. The IGCA also stipulates that those regulations may provide only for summary conviction for offenses they create. 21. Since it is proposed that penalties under the proposed regulations for offenses exceed the penalties prescribed under the IGCA, it is necessary to authorize the Commission in the bill to exceed those levels, where appropriate, for offenses created under the regulations. This is the import and purpose of Clause 48, Part IV1. The first four clauses in Part IV address the continuation of the existing electoral office after the Act takes effect.
Okay, I guess we'll get that in Clause 48. Offenses and well, look at there. I guess it'll be extended in Clause 48.
Offenses and penalties. 2. The remaining 11 clauses in Part IV, Clauses 38-48, create a number of offenses relating to the registration of electors and fixes penalties. Clause 48 provides a general penalty applicable to offenses for which no specific penalty is provided.
It needs to be provided, man. Bribery and treating, jail! that is what it is. You caught bribery and treating, evident, jail!
Part 5. The confirmation process. 3. The clauses in Part 5 are the transitional provisions between the existing register of voters and the new register.
Okay.
4. They provide that any person who is registered as an elector on the date when the new act comes into force is entitled to be registered as an elector in the preliminary register established under this act. Every such person must apply to have his or her registration as an elector confirmed within the period established by the Commission. The name of a person who is not confirmed shall be deleted from the register of electors. Such a person has a limited period within which to apply for late registration.
Okay.
5. The confirmation process as detailed in the regulations require compliance with the new provisions for obtaining a voter ID card. In order to be confirmed, the elector must obtain a voter ID card. The voter must supply personal and biometric data in order to obtain the voter ID card. Persons who reside overseas would typically have to return home to Dominica for this exercise.
True.
A person who is not confirmed within the confirmation period would be deleted from the register of electors.
That's how it should be. Exactly. That's how it should be, man.
6. The financial implications of confirmation would vary depending on the location of an eligible person and the cost of traveling to the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Really?
This means that it would be more costly for some than for others, and an eligible person who could not come home for financial, health or other reasons would be disenfranchised. Responsible authorities should put arrangements in place to mitigate this situation, particularly as it is those with the least economic means who are most vulnerable.
I do agree with that one, you know. The reason being, because even if for whatever reason they are not able to meet the criteria amount of time that they need to spend in Dominica for them to be able to vote during that 5 years, if they cannot meet it, they should not vote. Simple. They shouldn't vote. What you come in and vote for? You're not in the country to understand the country. You just come in. No, man. Anyways.
7. Clauses 51 and 52 make provision for the Commission to designate suitable places overseas as enrollment centers and provide limited relief to late applicants. During consultation with the leader of the opposition and his team, concerns were expressed about the retention of Clause 51.
Let's go to the whole thing.
During our consultations, there were representations that the governing party was much better funded than other political parties and that they used money to bring voters to Dominica in numbers large enough to influence the outcome of an election. It would seem that such an advantage could be eliminated by using technology-enabled systems to facilitate eligible persons to establish their right to vote without having to incur the expense of or obtain funding to travel to Dominica. Any arrangement that could reduce the cost of travel for this purpose for some people is an improvement on the default position. Selecting about 4 suitably located centers around the world should mitigate the cost for overseas voters and demonstrate the commitment to ensure that no eligible voter is disenfranchised. It would be logistically and financially impractical to establish too many enrollment centers. The Commission could make an evidence-based selection of suitable overseas locations.
I think one of the things that they wanted to do, if I'm understanding it correct, is to like have an additional constituency. You have the overseas voters constituency. I think that will... So the overseas voters want to come and vote, come to Dominica during the time, and then they should have different parts all over the United States or UK, wherever they're having it. Well, they're saying that might be a little costly, but no, man. They just have meetings where they have like the Houston, Dominica Houston Association. They just have different sectors of things so people can actually come and vote in the United States without coming to Dominica. That would deplete the cost of the government, them spending how much money to bring in people, and then say, no, we're not doing bribery and cheating. That would eliminate that problem right there. And then, of course, they can actually give the overseas voters who have been to Dominica during the 5 years, the 90 days that they have been in Dominica for 5 years, give them a constituency, the overseas voters constituency. Say they will, so in other words, have 21 constituencies in Dominica. They'll have 22. Yes, I think that will make sense. They'll have 22. So whoever those overseas voters vote for, they have a right to vote in Dominica. I think that is a wonderful thing. They have a right to vote in Dominica, but in their overseas voters constituency. That will be 22. They won't come and affect the rest of the 21 constituencies. I think that is a good idea right there. What are your thoughts, guys? Let me know.
Nine. There is already precedent and protocols established in the visa application process which could be used. A government could be requested to make its consular services available for this purpose, thus providing
True.
an impartial environment. It is recommended that a human witness should verify that the biometric data was provided by the applicant. The system used in such an arrangement would ensure that any collected data is securely transferred directly to the Electoral Commission.
Yep. That's a good idea. I think that's a good idea right there. Let's continue.
There will be no retention of records by any facilitating government. Suitable technology is accessible, and requests have been made to the government to support urgent acquisition. These are proposals which may remove fear of political manipulation and assist persons to confirm their right to franchise in a cost-effective manner.
Yeah, or you're not in Postmod, you're not in Roseau, you're not in Cassie Bruce, you're not in Vickers. No, man! They should put 22 constituencies and have somebody representing the people's interests. The Dominicans who actually been to Dominica, have the interest there. Anyways, this is, let me continue. Let's read all this thing.
Part 5 Repeal, Savings and Transitional Provisions. 1. Clauses 56 repeals the existing Registration of Electors Act, Chapter 203, and Clauses 57 to 60 contain the Savings and Transitional Provisions. Draft of Registration of Electors Regulations, 2022. The regulations are divided into Part 1 Preliminary, Part I Registration of Persons as Electors, Part II Registers and Lists, Part IV General Provisions, V Confirmation of Registration as Elector, Schedules, Forms and Oath of Office. The substance is based on the existing regulations, provisions of the draft amending regulation of 2017 which were never promulgated, and some new provisions.
Yeah, let's continue right there. There's people that write that for me. Well, all you I need to do all these spell checks, eh? But anyways, let's continue.
Part Preliminary. The two clauses deal with the short title and the interpretation clause. Part 1 deals with the registration persons as electors. Enrollment officer. This part commences with prescribing the appointment of enrollment officers by the Commission after consultation with the CRO. Regs 2 and 3. These officers are engaged with the primary purpose of performing functions relating to the confirmation of registration as electors. These functions are described in Part 5 Regs 50 to 55.
But that is what you... Well, you better go and listen
to residence requirements for registration. Ordinary residence is defined in Reg 6, and powers for house-to-house investigative visits by enumerators are conferred by Reg 7. The CR0 may require enumerators to do house-to-house visits for investigative purposes as prescribed by Reg 7.
Okay, application of registration. Let's go. Tell all that plenty, eh?
The form and manner of application for registration is prescribed by Reg 8, and Reg 9 creates the offense of giving false information in connection with an application for registration. Yeah. Reg 10 regulates the process by the registering officer in considering each application, and if the applicant meets requirements of the Act, the transmission of the application and supporting documents to the CRO, who, if satisfied, completes the registration process and causes a voter identification card to be issued. Regs 11 and 12 provide that a registering officer may issue a notice of disallowance of registration if of opinion that the applicant does not qualify for registration under the Act, and the process of appealing against the said notice of disallowance.
Okay. Yes, sir. Well, we have plenty there. Yes, Father. Yes, I. Hey, yes, sir.
Voter identification card. Regs 13 to 16 make detailed provisions relating to the voter identification card. Registration records. Reg 17 provides that registration records relating to each person shall be computer generated and maintained in electronic form by the CRO. Regs 18 and 19 make provisions for correction of errors in the records and the reconstruction of lost, mutilated, destroyed registration records. General provisions relating to identification cards and registration records. Regs 20 and 21 prescribe the keeping of records relating to voter identification cards issued, lost, destroyed, or replaced, in the safe custody of cards and other related records. Reg 22 creates offenses relating to destroying and creating false records.
Yep, need to be punished for that. If they're making fake voter ID cards.
Part 1 Registers and Lists. Regs 23 to 26 gives detailed directions relating to the form revision and publication of the preliminary register. Provision is also made for notices to be given requesting entitled people omitted from the register to make a claim, inviting qualified persons whose name do not appear on the preliminary register to apply, and stating that objection can be made to the inclusion of a person's name on the preliminary register.
Guys, my camera just stopped there, but we back. Let's continue. That is plenty. Let's continue, Papa. Let's continue.
Reg 27 requires the Commission to establish electoral revising centers in each constituency, and the CRO prior to publication of the preliminary register to publish a notice specifying places where the electoral revising centers have been established and the dates and times which applications may be made, claims and objections. Regs 28 to 35 details the procedure for claims and objections in relation to the preliminary register. Reg 34 outlines information gathering powers of the CRO, the registering officers and the enumerators in the discharge of their functions under the regulations. The regs in this part outline the primary decisions that can be made by the registering officers and the oversight decisions of the CRO, and Reg 33 allows a person aggrieved by a decision of the CRO to appeal to the Commission. The procedures for such an appeal are governed by Reg 42. Regs 36 to 41 provide detailed directions on all aspects of dealing with amendments or alterations to registers and lists relating to the address, name or particular of an elector.
So this is just breaking down the different regulations and stuff. Anyways, let's continue.
Reg 42 sets out the procedure on appeal to the Commission against a decision of the CRO. Reg 43 to 47 gives general administrative directions regarding how notices under the Act and regulations are to be delivered, whose name do not appear on the preliminary register to apply, and stating that objection can be made to the inclusion of a person's name on the preliminary register. Reg 27 requires the Commission to establish electoral revising centers in each constituency, and the CRO prior to publication of the preliminary register to publish a notice specifying places where the electoral revising centers have been established and the dates and times which applications may be made, claims and objections. Regs 28 to 35 details the procedure for claims and objections in relation to the preliminary register. Reg 34 outlines information gathering powers of the CRO, the registering officers and the enumerators in the discharge of their functions under the regulations. The regs in this part outline the primary decisions that can be made by the registering officers and the oversight decisions of the CRO, and Reg 33 allows a person aggrieved by a decision of the CRO to appeal to the Commission. Obviously. The procedures for such an appeal are governed by Reg 42. Regs 36 to 41 provide detailed directions on all aspects of dealing with amendments or alterations to registers and lists relating to the address, name or particular of an elector.
No, this is the draft there, guys. This is a summary of the draft right there. Okay, this is not, so you've seen the different regulations and what have you, guys. This is just a summary of it.
Reg 43 to 47 gives general administrative directions regarding how notices under the Act and regulations are to be delivered, allowing access to copies of Commission documents on payment of cost to cover making copies, addressing consequences of failure to publish document in accordance with the regulations. Reg 48 prescribes that persons guilty of an offense under the regs shall be liable on summary conviction to penalties not exceeding $5,000 or 6 months or both. Part V. The confirmation of registration as elector. Regs 50-55 details the process for a confirmation of registration as electors. Schedules.
The schedules contain the forms, blah blah blah, discharge of the regulations. There is a simple caveat based on technology, blah blah blah. You guys hopefully you guys understand the whole gist of this. This is just a draft, gives you an understanding of, obviously when the real thing comes out, it's gonna break down what the different regulations are. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. So it gives you an insight as to this. This is just a summary of the whole thing. We have finally completed this a long time, brothers and sisters. Like I said before, if you want to listen to the actual audio of the whole thing itself, that is on BrBpTV. I'll also post the second part as well a bit later on, so you guys can definitely check that out as well. Part 1 and part 2 will be there. It's gonna be a whole hour and probably 3 minutes. The whole thing, part 1 is about 30 minutes, the other one is about 33 minutes. So definitely check that out right there on BrBpTV. Like I said before, the link of that will be in the description below, guys. Give this video a thumbs up. If you understand it, if you want to see more, definitely subscribe and turn on that post notifications so you can get all the videos as they tend to come out. See you guys in the next reaction video. Boom, bye.